All right, so this is going to be a Kamala Harris interview. This is the first sit down she's doing with Fox News. So, you know, it's going to be a spicy one. It's by this guy here, Bret. And supposedly he holds her accountable with some things. So we'll see.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you. It's good to be with you, Bret.
You know, voters tell pollsters all over the country and here in Pennsylvania that immigration is one of the key issues that they're looking at this election, and specifically the influx of illegal immigrants from more than 150 countries. How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad.
That started off pretty good. All of them. All of them. It's amazing how both sides think they won on X. I haven't looked at X yet. That's just kind of how it goes usually, though. They're like, oh, Kamala did great, and this interviewer was a total asshole. He was asking such wrong questions, blah, 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 blah. But this is a fair question. This is something people want to actually hear.
Glad you raised the issue of immigration, because I agree with you. It is
a disaster. That's what it is.
Topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but
right
do you
now,
just a number?
She's going to talk about the bipartisan border bill that actually wasn't about the border.
You think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Bret, let's just get to the point.
Border bill upcoming, drinks are ready, locked and loaded, ready to go. I'm going to be wired by the end of this.
Okay, the point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished.
And your party spent several years calling Donald Trump a racist because he realized that our immigration system was broken.
We have
it's a rough estimate of 6 million people have been released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question, I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And when you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy.
Who built the cages, Joe? Who built the cages?
They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act.
Do we count that? The first bill? She didn't technically say it yet, but you know it's coming. It's definitely coming.
Before the CHIPS and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was.
And flood our money into different countries.
Called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the.
Yes, ma'am. May I finish responding, please? But you have to let me finish.
You
please.
had the White House.
You have to not ramble on about things that are not relevant. That's what you have to do.
The House and the Senate,
and they didn't bring up that bill. I'm responding to the point you're raising, and I'd like to finish.
You're talking in circles is what you're doing, wasting time. Just don't show up. If you're just going to waste people's time, just don't show up, please.
Yes, ma'am.
We recognized from day one that, to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has...
Wasn't the first action taken to revoke Trump's border actions? Yes, that's what they were running on. It was how Trump was a racist and how he was fighting off the immigrants, and he's just not letting people come into this country, and he was so bad, but yet his wife is an immigrant, and he couldn't even, he couldn't even just accept that his wife was an immigrant and realize that immigrants were good.
Been on fixing a problem. And from day one, then, we have done a number of things, including to address our asylum system and put more resources, getting more judges, what we needed to do to tighten up penalties and increase penalties for illegal crossings, what we needed to do to deal with points of entry between border entry points. That's the work we did, and we worked on supporting what was a bipartisan effort, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, to actually strengthen the border.
All right, pull up the chart. We need the immigration chart just to show her that she's not helping. Nothing that she's done has helped at all. Reminder that everything wrong and dystopian in our society is happening to ensure that people with more money than they can ever possibly need are able to keep getting more money as quickly as possible. You're probably not wrong, man. You're probably not wrong.
That border bill would have put 1,500 more border agents at the border, which is why I believe the Border Patrol agents supported the bill. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States, which is a scourge affecting people of every background, every geographic location in our country, killing people. It would have allowed us to put more resources into prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, which I have done as the Attorney General, former Attorney General of a border state.
Madam Vice President, a couple of things.
Prosecuted trafficking of drugs, guns, and human beings. And Donald Trump, but let me just finish.
Six Democrats voted against that bill.
Learned about that bill and told them to kill it because he...
She is rambling on with her typical script, and it's not working here. If you're doing an interview, you're having a conversation, it's not just... You just run off like a chihuahua. Like, that shit doesn't work. It just makes you look stupid. You need to have a conversation. That's what an interview is. You ask questions, you know, you don't just ramble on for paragraphs at a time. Most of these answers that she should be saying are really simple. They're really just simple answers. You know, you could answer with a couple sentences what you actually feel. Remember when they wanted to reduce border agents because of that pick with the horse reins? Pepperidge Farm remembers? I remember a bunch of total issues that they were doing with the cages and all this, you know, just painting Trump as a racist. And then they ran on that they were the great people that wouldn't allow this to happen. A bunch of BS, man.
Prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And in this election, this is rightly a discussion that the American people want to have. And what they want are solutions, and they want a president of the United States who's not playing political games with the issue,
I hear you,
but actually is focused on fixing
Six
it.
Democrats.
Bret wouldn't have interrupted her like he does her. I mean, she's running on though. Like, she's not really answering the questions. So I mean, Trump never rambles. Yeah, I'm with you. Trump rambles. Oh, he rambles a lot. I'll give you that. But when she gets going, man, she's a chihuahua. She really is just barking, and it's a lot of it's not relevant or just blatantly false. And that's where he needs to interject and say, actually, this is what's happening. Respond to the actual issues. Don't just ramble on with your typical speech. Like, this is not a rally for you. This is not where you take the podium and I'm speaking. No, this is not you just holding your event. This is an interview. This is a conversation back and forth. You don't just take the floor and just BS your way through it by answering one question.
Voted against that bill. It would have allowed 1.8 million illegal immigrants into the country a year. A lot of conservatives had a problem with it. These are the six Democrats.
There they are.
But more importantly, back to the original premise, Jocelyn Nungary, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, they are young women who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration, well before a negotiated bipartisan bill.
My chihuahua's giving you dirty looks. Nothing against dogs, man. I love dogs.
Former President Clinton actually referred to Laken Riley Sunday campaigning for you in Georgia, saying if those men had been properly vetted, Laken Riley probably would not have been killed. So if it wouldn't have happened.
So we do remember Trump holding his, I guess you wouldn't really call that a rally because there wasn't people there. It was just like a news conference, I guess you would call it, where he brought out the families of the people who actually died, showing that it was a real issue. And it wasn't just this big conspiracy theory about how these immigrants are doing bad things in the country.
This is well before any negotiation. This is well before Donald Trump got involved in the politics. This is a specific policy decision by your administration to release these men into the country. So what I'm saying to you, do you owe
Bret,
those families an apology?
Let me just say, first of all, those are tragic cases.
Yeah.
There's no question about that.
Absolutely.
There's no question about that. And I can't imagine the pain that the families of those victims have experienced for a loss that should not have occurred. So that is true. It is also true that if a border security had actually been passed 9 months ago, it would be 9 months that we would have had more border agents at the border, more support for the folks who are working around the clock.
It's not just about the border agents. It's about all the people that you're just importing into the country, allegedly being through a legal process. It's, if you look at the amount of immigrants coming into the country, you can't just say, oh, if we had more border agents, that wouldn't be a problem. It doesn't work like that. Actually, he's looking for more snacks. Well, definitely give Doggo a treat. That's what he needs. It's amazing to see Bernie gradually fight against Kamala. I haven't seen that. I haven't really heard anything about Bernie in a long time.
Trying to hold it all together,
Madam Vice President,
to ensure that no future harm would occur. And this election in 20 days will determine whether we have a president of the United States who actually cares more about fixing a problem, even if it is not to their political advantage in an election, because there was a solution, Bret.
The issue is that the problem is going up because of your leadership. It's not about Trump if he wants to fix the issue or not. It's that looking at the policies that you're doing now is making it worse.
Madam Vice President, it was a policy decision in the early part of your administration. I will let one of the mothers talk about it. Take a listen.
Yeah, here we go.
Because of the Biden-Harris administration open border policies catch and release, they were enrolled in the Alternatives to Detention program. This meant that they were released into the United States. It was not even a full 3 weeks later that they would take my daughter, Jocelyn Nungare's life. I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
That's the early days. So do you owe them an apology is what I'm saying.
I will tell you that I am so sorry for her loss. I'm so sorry for her loss. Sincerely. But let's talk about...
She's not sorry. Look at her. She don't give a fuck.
What is happening right now with an individual who does not want to participate in solutions. Let's talk about that as well.
No way. Crossings are not down. No way. Because we saw the immigration chart. It's huge. Under her, immigration has gone up crazy numbers, especially looking after Trump being more tight on the border and immigration in general and the illegal crossings. Like, immigration is very high right now. Bernie is keeping mostly quiet because he doesn't want to get Clinton. That makes sense.
But do you want to answer?
In all fairness, I told you, I feel awful for what she and her family have experienced.
During that time, you said repeatedly that the border was secure. When in your mind did it start becoming a crisis?
I think we've had a broken immigration system transcending, by the way, Donald Trump's administration even before. Let's all be honest about that. I have no pride in saying that this is a perfect immigration system. I've been clear, I think we all are, that it needs to be fixed. We need more. I was just down at the border talking with border agents, and they will tell you, and I'm sure you probably, I know you investigate and you are a serious journalist. They will tell you, we need more judges. We need to process those cases faster. We need the support for those cases that should be prosecuted. They need more resources, and Congress ultimately is the only place that's going to get fixed, Bret. Well, that's how this system works.
That's the premise of this question.
But
there were 90-plus
works.
executive orders that were rescinded in the first days. Many of those were Trump border policies. I'm not going to stay here because there's other things to talk about, but you frequently talk to the Border Patrol Union for support of that bipartisan bill, and they did. They supported it. But they also just endorsed Donald Trump and said, you've been, quote, a failure with border security. Why do you think they said that?
I think they're frustrated, and I get it. They want support. They want support, and that's what that border security bill would have done. These guys down at the border, these men and women, they're working hard. They're working around the clock. I get it.
There's a lot of people that look back at what you said in 2019 when you first ran for president. And there have been changes, and you've talked about some of them. When it comes to immigration, you supported allowing immigrants in the country illegally to apply for driver's license, to qualify for free tuition at universities, to be enrolled in free health care. Do you still support those things?
Listen, that was 5 years ago, and I'm very clear that I will follow the law. I have made that statement over and over again, and as Vice President of the United States,
I'll go out on a limb and say that she is more empathetic than 45. I don't think it's that she's more empathetic. It really comes down to the position of like what we're talking about. Neither one of them are really empathetic. I think both of them probably don't care about us really. Just saying. What's the good word? What's going on, Corporal Fly? I'm back from another 4 days of working to stream, to do the thing that I actually like doing. So I'm here watching the politics and getting caught up. Wait, now we need more law and order. Wasn't it abolish the police before? Yes, she's on video saying she wants to abolish the police. Even Trump's chart doesn't show what he claims it does. Where's the chart? Pull it up. Where's the chart? I was trying to find it. Trump's immigration chart. Chart. He pulls it up on every rally. Why can't I find a picture of it? How Trump's credits and immigration, blah, 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 blah. Where are we at? Oh, here it is. Okay, here's his chart. This is the one he always talks about. And of course, I click it and it didn't work correctly. Now I got to add. Okay. Okay, here we go. Let me see this bad boy right here. So this is Trump's chart. This is where he's showing, and granted, this is Trump's chart, so maybe the numbers aren't correct, but this is the one that he always shows, so we're rolling with that right now. This is when he left office, and this is when everything went up. Now, granted, you're right. COVID would have stopped, around here, or stopped people from coming in around this time. And then, of course, they would have opened back up. But even just looking into his presidency, you can see that he being Joe, let hella more people in, and to include Kamala under their leadership. Look at this shit. Boom. That's quite a few people, Now, you could look at that and say, oh, that's Trump's chart. I don't believe those numbers are accurate, but it's being fact-checked by the Washington Post, which is known for not liking Trump. So, there we go. That's what I have to say about it. How's the interview? So far, they're doing like Trump got at the National Association of Black Journalism. This is pretty much her version of that so far. Like, he's ripping into her pretty bad, and they're talking over each other. It's not very good. Paul, I think she plays empathetic better. Neither one cares about anyone. Yeah, she tries to come from the motherly angle and pretend that she's empathetic, but I don't think she is. And I don't think Trump is either. I don't think they really care about us at all. Just my opinion. But anyway, let's get back into it. Here we go.
yes, that's exactly what I've done, not to mention before.
If that's the case, you chose a running mate, Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, who signed those very things into state law. So do you support that?
We are very clear, and I am very clear, as is Tim Walz, that we must support and enforce federal law, and that is exactly what we will do.
That's not even close to what was asked. Not even close.
Decriminalizing border crossings, like you said in 2019.
I do not believe in decriminalizing border crossings, and I've not done that as vice president. I will not do that as president.
So these are evolutions that you've had.
But let's be very clear. I'm the only person who's running for president who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations, from the Sinaloa cartel to the Guadalajara cartel to people who have trafficked in guns, drugs, and human beings. I have spent a significant part of my career going after people who present a threat to the safety.
There she goes back to that rhetoric, going back to her rally campaign speech, that no one cares about because it's not a campaign speech, just as an interview. If neither care about us, I would rather have the one that doesn't care, that had lower gas prices. There's no disagreeing with that. There really isn't. You guys would like Hal, I think. Yeah, throw me the link, and after we get through this one, I'll put it up here.
The American people.
Or wait,
cross
because it's going to go away in the chat, I think. Or maybe not. Maybe I can scroll up. I don't know. Whatever. Do what you want. We'll figure it out.
Our border with the intent of doing us harm and cross our border illegally, and I will do that work as vice president. I take that work quite seriously.
This is a time when voters, especially here in Pennsylvania, are inundated with commercials and ads. They just want it to stop because it's every commercial. But many of them add noise, but a few of them seem to break through. This particular one from the Trump campaign has gotten a lot of attention.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
What?
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
Come on. There's no way. What is she talking about? How is that a thing? They're prisoners. They barely get medical care.
So are you still in support of using taxpayer dollars to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender?
I will follow the law, and it's a law that Donald Trump actually followed. You're probably familiar with, now it's a public report, that under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available on a medical necessity basis to people in the federal prison system. And I think, frankly, that ad from the Trump campaign is a little bit of like throwing stones when you're living in a glass house.
The Trump aide said that he never advocated for that prison policy and no gender transition surgeries
you know what? You got to take responsible for what happened in your administration.
Yeah, no surgeries happened in his presidency.
It's in black and white.
Would you still advocate for using taxpayer dollars for gender reassignment surgeries?
I will follow the law, just as I
but you have
think
say.
We're asking for your opinion because you are trying to be the president. It's not about following the law. That's not an answer for anything. This lady pisses me off so much. That's not an answer. Tell us what you want. What is your leadership going to do?
Trump would say he did.
You would have a say as president.
Like I said, I think he spent $20 million on those ads, trying to create a sense of fear in the voters.
Sure, because that's your opponent. You can say he's trying to sling mud, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But just tell us, is that what you believe? Is this what you want to spend money on? Just answer the question. Don't defer to Trump.
He actually has no plan in this election that is about focusing on the needs of the American people. Whereas at $20 million on that.
Whereas I will get sex change surgery for prisoners because that's what the American people need.
On an issue that, as it relates to the biggest issues that affect the American people, it's really quite remote. And again, his policy was no different. Look at where we are, though.
They say
on plans for the American people, I'm offering a plan to deal with affordable housing. I'm offering a plan to deal with what we need to do to strengthen small businesses, which are the backbone of America's economy. I am offering a plan that is about taking care of young parents and giving them the support they need. My plans for the economy will strengthen the economy, as have been reviewed by 16 Nobel laureates, Goldman Sachs, Moody's, and recently the Wall Street Journal, which have all studied our plans and have indicated my plans for our economy would strengthen our economy. His would make them weaker, would ignite inflation and invite a recession by the middle of next year. Those are the facts.
Why do you think more people say they trust him on the economy than they trust you?
I think
because they're looking at the results. We've had Trump. The economy was booming. Even if you say that's BS, it wasn't because of Trump's policies, right? You could still, most people are going to look at it and say, okay, under Trump, I was killing it. I was making hella money. I could afford my groceries, and under Kamala, I can't. Even if just by luck of being elected during that time is the reason why that occurred, that's what a lot of people are going to do. It's just how it's going to go. How is Trump going to bring down gas prices and inflations? I mean, he had a plan about not using the reserves that we've been using. Maybe that would help with having product on hand. I don't know what his plan is for gas. Honestly, we'd have to look it up and look into it. But yeah, I don't have that on hand. Remember remember first time home buyers can get $25K. Too bad no one can afford a house, and that extra $25K would only increase housing costs. Exactly, which is it's what she's talking about. She's also talking about increasing the supply of homes, which would hopefully bring down the prices. So maybe that would help if we're trying to give her something here. But it just seems unrealistic that we're just going to have so many so much of a greater supply. Drill, baby, drill. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely part of his package there, is to drill even more. Even though they've reversed policies now to go back to Trump policies to drill, his plan is to drill even more, which would obviously help with gas prices, of course. Riding on Obama's economic. I mean, if that's something you want to think of, sure, I guess. If that's how you see it, maybe. Either way, you can logically think, like maybe he was riding on Obama's coattails, and somehow he got this great economy from him. Most people are going to look at this and say, during those 4 years, I was killing it. And they're going to say, well, it must have been because of Trump. And they're probably going to vote for him because of it.
That when you look at an analysis of our plans for what we would do as president of the United States, it has been clear to those who study and understand how economic policy works that moving forward, because I do believe
you can think of it like this. Say you take a job and that job doesn't want to promote you because in the background, that job, the business doesn't have the money, they don't have the funding at the time, maybe they're not selling as many products, that kind of thing. And you go to a different job and that job gives you a promotion because really that they were just having a good year, they were selling all these products. Most people are still going to look at that job and go, oh, this job cares about me more because they give me a promotion. It's kind of the same thing. Just to not even get into the politics of it, of which policy helped whoever, just to not even get into that, your average person who doesn't have time for politics is just going to look at that and go, oh, I got a raise here. This job is better.
The American people are ready to turn the page on the divisiveness and the type of rhetoric that has come out of Donald Trump. People are ready to chart a new way forward, and they want a president who has a plan for the future.
Chart a new way forward, even though I've been in office already.
And a plan that is sound and will strengthen our country. My plan for the economy does exactly that. His plan would be, again, to give tax cuts to billionaires and the biggest corporations in our country and blow up our deficit.
It's interesting you said turn the page, Madam Vice President. You were asked on 2 different shows last week what, if anything, you would do differently than President Biden. Here's what you said.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be and what would stay the same?
Come on, let's turn the page.
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I know.
And so that would be one change in terms of, but also I think it's important to say with, 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump.
So
we're not turning the page.
You're not Joe Biden, you're not Donald Trump, but nothing comes to mind that you would do differently?
Let me be very clear. My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. And like every new president that comes into office, I will bring my life experiences.
All right, nobody cares about that bullshit. The question you were asked is, what do you want to do differently? You can't just sit here and go, oh, well, I'm a different person, I will do things differently. What are you going to do differently? That's what people want to know. That is the question. Answer the fucking question.
My professional experiences and fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership. For example...
Here we go. All right. For example, let's do this.
I'm someone who has not spent the majority of my career in Washington, D.C. I invite ideas, whether it be from the Republicans who are supporting me, who were just on stage with me minutes ago, and the business sector, and others who can contribute to the decisions that...
That's not a policy. That's not a policy. I'm going to listen to people's ideas. Okay. Everybody does that. They still have their own biases. It doesn't matter. That's not an answer.
I make about, for example, my plan for increasing the supply of housing in America and bringing down the cost of housing, addressing the...
Back to her campaign speech. Pivot right back into everything that she's always said. Go back to the comfort zone. We are producing more oil ever after Biden threatened companies to use the drilling permits or lose them. I didn't know that. I know we were not at one point, and then they went back to more drilling. I don't know if they're doing more, but yeah, that could be true. And that would make sense because we need that. We need lower gas prices. We need the money that comes from it. We used a lot of reserves when it came to oil, so I'm sure we need to replenish that. So that would make sense. Look up the history of Republican and Democratic economies. Ours fuck it up every time. I mean, it's hard to say. Really hard to say. Guess she just has concepts of a plan too. And yeah, and Corporal Fly, when you say that, we can trash Trump too, because that was a terrible answer. When they asked him, what are you going to do? Do you have a plan? And he said, we have concepts of a plan. What kind of answer is that? That's the worst answer he could have gave. Really. It's terrible. Awful answer. You didn't prepare for a question like that. Like, that should be the first question. What are you going to do? Do you have a plan? And then you spill into your campaign speech like she's doing right here. That should be like day one shit. But he said, oh, I have concepts of a plan. Come on. Like, really? Really? Did you actually say that? Trump is just beyond. I mean, yeah, I'm with you. I'm totally with you there.
The issue of small businesses, which is about working with the private sector to bring more capital and access to capital to our small business leaders, including my plan for a $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers and for small businesses, extending the tax deduction from $5,000 to $50,000.
We've heard a lot about those plans in recent days. Your campaign slogan is a new way forward, and it's time to turn the page. You've been vice president for 3.5 years. So
mic drop right there. That's the mic drop.
What are you turning the page from?
Well, first of all,
from myself.
Turning the page from the last decade.
Kamala 2.0.
In which we have been burdened with the kind of rhetoric coming from Donald Trump that
we have been burdened by what has been. Dude. She's not doing well here, really.
Has been designed and implemented to divide our country and have Americans literally point fingers at each other. Rhetoric and an approach to leadership that suggests that the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down instead of what we all know.
And you think you're going to change that? You're not going to change anything. People are animals. They're always going to have some team that they hate. That's how humans work. You're either with them or you're against them, and that's how it's always going to be.
The strength of leadership is based on who you lift up. The strength of an American president, which is one who understands that the vast majority of us have more in common than what separates us.
Madam Vice President,
I did find Hal's post on X regarding the immigrant chart. We'll check it out, man. We will definitely check that out.
70% of people
that is about
pollsters,
turning the page on rhetoric that people are frankly exhausted of, Brett.
More than 70% of people tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Yeah. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
What does that have to do with anything? She tried to pivot back to Trump. What is she talking about? What is her problem? Running for office and being in office are not the same thing.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam Vice President.
Yeah, you, come on. You know you fucked up there. Now how are you going to pull yourself out of this one? Come on, let's hear it.
Both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
We have no idea what you're talking about, lady.
What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade, people have become... But listen, over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me, the former chief of staff to the president, Donald Trump, former defense secretaries.
Yeah, she's not going to answer that shit. Guessing you have a day off. I get every Friday off. That is one of the benefits of this new job. It's pretty cool. I have flex hours as long as I'm there during the core hours, which is like 9 to 3 or something. I have a 4-day work week. as long as I get 40 hours in, they are cool with it, and I'm there doing the core hours. So far, so good. So far, so good on this new job. I can't complain too much.
National Security Advisor and his vice president. One, that he is unfit to serve, that he is unstable, that he is...
It's not as cool as staying at home and streaming all day, I'll tell you that. That's definitely not as fun as that. But I wouldn't expect it to be.
Dangerous, and that people are exhausted with someone who professes to be a leader who spends full time demeaning and engaging in personal grievances and it being about him instead of the American people. People are tired of that.
If that's the case, why is half the country supporting him? Why is he beating you in a lot of swing states? Why, if he's as bad as you say, that half of this country is now supporting this person who could be the 47th president of the United States? Why is that happening?
This is an election for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy.
I know, but
it's not supposed to be. It is
right, but why is it not easy? Why do these people not like you? That's the question.
It's not supposed to be a cakewalk.
So are they misguided, the 50%?
Listen,
are they stupid? What is it?
I would never say that about the American people. And in fact, if you listen to Donald Trump, if you watch any of his rallies, he's the one who tends to demean and belittle and diminish the American people. He's the one who talks about an enemy within, an enemy within, talking about the American people. Suggesting
because you do have enemies within. When you have people actually trying to censor free speech and people are jumping on board with that, yeah, you're my enemy. If you want to silence me in any way, you're my enemy. You will always be my enemy. If you're using political power to silence other people, you are an enemy. It's true. What do you want, lady?
He would turn the American military on the American people.
All right, that's just false. That's just something you pulled out of your ass.
We asked that question to the former president today. Harris Faulkner had a town hall, and this is how he responded.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
So,
Brett, I'm sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated when he's speaking about the American people. That's not what you just showed.
Well, he was asked about that specific...
No, that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and respect to you.
That was the question that we asked him.
He didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And you and I both know.
Yes, he's talking about an enemy within, which is using the courts to go after him. That's what he's talking about. You can not agree with it and not be on Trump's side and think that he's actually doing these criminal actions. That's fine, but that's what he's referring to. Trump's been pulling the strings of our leadership regardless if he's in office or not. Yeah, I think you could probably say that. He has a heavy influence on the Republican Party. That's fair. I'll give her that to some extent, but the way she answered the question was terrible. To just say, "Oh, he's running for office," like that's kind of a kind of answer to that question. Enemies within says the party to platforming. Wait, what? Enemies within says the party to platforming on saving democracy. Oh yeah, exactly. It's the same thing. They're all doing the same thing. But that was the specific question that was asked of her. So I get the angle she's coming from. He played the wrong clip. You think so? Really? I mean, that seems like that would have been a reasonable answer to the question that he asked, but maybe. I don't know. I didn't fact check it or anything. This is my first time watching this interview, so maybe.
That he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the president of the United States, in the United States of America.
Isn't that what your party's trying to do to him now?
Should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it. And
Trump controls the Republicans like Obama's, Clinton's, and Pelosi controls the Democrats. Yeah, I think that's fair to say too. Absolutely. So if that was her claim for saying, oh, he's running as well, well, the question was really about her being in office. I get where she's coming from. That wasn't specific to the question, but if we're going to, link all the dots together, then yeah, that's fair. Sure.
This is what is at stake, which is why you have someone like the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying what Mark Milley has said about Donald Trump being a threat to the United States of America.
He's quoted in the Bob Woodward book that way, yes. Let me ask you this, Madam Vice President. You call Donald Trump.
The significance of that.
You call Donald Trump. He's misguided. You say now
he's unstable. He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
I've been through all the analysts. Brett apologized. Let's look that up after this. I want to see that too. I want to see where the fact checking is.
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making.
He was an experiment.
Very important decisions.
The experiment failed.
On behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
but
is.
You talked about it.
And Donald Trump
after George Clooney said.
This interview seems like a missed opportunity. For what exactly? What are we missing? Listening to her speak all these years, how was she ever a successful DA? God knows. I thought it was George Soros.
And within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump, which is why the people who know him best.
Yeah, that wasn't the question. We were asking about when you were supporting Biden, knowing that he had mental issues and was declining, and you refused to accept it. That shows bad faith in your character. Because how can we believe you on any issue now? Because we know you're going to say what you're told to say.
Including leaders of our national security community, have all spoken out, even people who worked for him in the Oval Office, worked with him in the Situation Room, and have said he is unfit and dangerous and should never be president of the United States again, including his former vice president, which is why the job was open for him to choose another running mate. So that is a fact. That is a fact.
Madam Vice President, two more things. You were asked on 60 Minutes about the biggest threat that the world faces, that the U.S. faces. This is what you said.
Oh gosh, she's going to say Trump, isn't she?
Which foreign country do you consider to be our greatest adversary?
I think there's an obvious one in mind, which is Iran. Iran has American blood on their hands, okay? This attack on Israel, 200 ballistic missiles. What we need to do to ensure that Iran never achieves the ability to be a nuclear power, that is one of my highest priorities.
What was wrong with that answer? Obviously Iran doesn't like us. What? Okay, what's he going to say?
A number of experts thought you would say China. The FBI.
I mean, China would be a good answer too, but right now, China's not throwing missiles at people either.
Director had said that. But you said Iran. If that's the case, what do you say to critics who look at the actions of your administration and say you're not acting like Iran is the number one threat?
Okay.
Well, I will tell you most recently, whether it was in April or in October, and then several hours on each occasion that Iran posed a threat to Israel, I was there. Most recently in the Situation Room, in the most recent attack, working with the heads of our military and doing what America must always do to defend and to support Israel in its requirement to defend itself. and to give American support to be able to allow Israel to have the resources to defend itself against attack, including from Iran and Iran's terrorist proxies in the region.
Right.
And that
but those
is,
proxies were getting
and
funded
my
by
commitment to that is unyielding and unwavering.
That was a decent answer. I'll give her that one. Kamala just playing all her classic hits and deflecting to Trump without giving a more solid answer. Yeah, and I kind of figured that was going to happen. You know, I was hoping that maybe he would push back on her and then she would, you know, kind of get some more of her personality, her opinions out there, and not just the campaign script. And he's trying to do it. My God, dude is old AF and has a speech impediment. We've had presidents in wheelchairs. I mean, I think it's a little bit worse than that. He's obviously on a decline. And when they tried to paint a picture like, oh no, he's as sharp as a tack, he's as sharp as he's ever been, that's the issue. It's not just that he's old. You can be old, that's fine, but when they tried to deny it, that's the issue. I don't think he's checked out like people say. Oh, I do. I think he's totally checked out. I really do. I think he's trying to get to retirement. You can tell. And that would be fine. Like you said, he's old as fuck, right? He should be getting to retirement. And he only has a few more months left anyway. So I would kind of expect it, a little bit.
Critics just say that you either relaxed or failed to enforce sanctions on Iran, allowing all of this money to flow into Iran, like billions.
Let's go back to Donald Trump, who pulled out of a deal that would have actually put Iran in check.
The estimates in billions.
It was during Donald Trump's
that
administration
go
that
Iran regime
that we had an American military base that was attacked, where American soldiers suffered traumatic brain injuries, and Donald Trump dismissed them as headaches. Not to mention how Donald Trump has
all of this money
has treated and
that was true. I'll give her that. And the only reason why I know that is because I was deployed while that shit was happening. And I remember when I came back, they were trying to say, oh, they just have headaches. Later, it was rectified. That's cool. That's great. But, initially they were like, oh, they just have headaches. Yeah, no, they have brain injuries. That's not a headache.
Talked about America's military and military service people calling them suckers and losers.
Hamas
has diminished the significance.
We're talking over each other. I apologize.
Well, I would like that we would have a conversation that is grounded in full assessment of the facts, which includes, I think this interview is supposed to be about the choices that your viewers should be presented about this election, and the contrast is important.
Yes, ma'am.
This is me being dumb and not in the know, but why is Israel so important? It's a strategic military location that we could use. That's pretty much what it comes down to. If we have allies in the regions, we can perform operations in an area that is quite known to, we need to have a location there, if that makes sense. Even though we don't have military bases in Israel, it just gives us another connection to do the things that we want to do.
And on the subject of Iran, I am offering what should be an important contrast that is presented for folks to make a decision that they feel.
Who look at what the administration did and say and think differently. Madam Vice President, they're wrapping me very hard here. I hope you got to say what you wanted.
I saw something about that on Twitter where they were saying they were rapping because of the questions or whatever. I don't know what was going on with that. I'll have to look into that too. But he just mentioned it, that they were rapping him really hard, whatever that means.
To say about Donald Trump, there are a lot of things.
There's more to say. I have much more to say.
There are a lot of things that people want to learn about you and your policies, and that's why
I invite everyone to go to KamalaHarris.com. And you will see that I have 80 pages of policies that are quite comprehensive and should be accessible to anyone who would like to read them. And it includes what I intend to do about affordable housing, what I intend to do about small businesses, what I do.
And that's why we invited you here, to see where you were in 2019 and where you are now.
America's military and ensure we have the most lethal and best fighting force in the world.
Madam Vice President, and they're giving me a hard rap
Well,
here.
I thank you for the time.
I thank you for the time.
It's good to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, that was a train wreck. For some Christians, Israel has to exist to bring on Armageddon. I mean, I don't You could say with some opinions, it could be a religious thing as well. I'm sure that would check out. But I think me being more of a pessimistic kind of person, I think it's just a strategic region that we can influence over that has a lot of enemies in the area. That's why we care so much about it.